Good afternoon, friends. I welcome you all for the today's session. First, let me know that whether I am audible to everyone. Am I audible to everyone? Okay. So in today's session, we have decided to discuss on the multiplexing techniques for the bandwidth utilization. Okay, so how we can utilize the bandwidth of a given link or a transmission medium to transmit the multiple data signals. So that is what the today's agenda. So whenever the bandwidth of a medium linking two devices is greater than the bandwidth needs of the device, the link can be shared. And the multiplexing is the set of technique that allows the transmission of multiple signal across a single data link. As the data and the communication, it is increasing day by day, so does the network traffic also increases. So as a part of this multiplexing, we are going to discuss about the different multiplexing techniques which have been mentioned here. In real life, we have link with the limited bandwidth. So bandwidth utilization is the wise use of available bandwidth to achieve the specific goals. So efficiency, it can be achieved by using the multiplexing technique, which is shown in this figure. Right, so multiplexing is one of the technique by which we can achieve the efficiency of we can efficiently utilize the bandwidth of a given link or the bandwidth of the given transmission medium. So as a part of multiplexing technique, there are three basic multiplexing techniques. The first one is frequency division multiplexing, time division multiplexing, and the third is code division multiplexing. The first technique, that is frequency division multiplexing, is specifically designed for analog signal. The time division multiplexing technique is specifically designed for digital signal, whereas the code division multiplexing technique, it may use the analog signal or digital signal, or the multiple combined or the different combination of the multiple signals can be transmitted using code division multiple access technique. So now we are going to see how this multiplexing will take place. So in this figure, in a multiplex system, the n lines or n channels, they shares the bandwidth of one link. The line on the left direct their transmission stream to a multiplexer, and multiplexer then combines them into a single stream. So that means many to one formation is shown. Okay. Now on the counterpart at the receiving end, that stream is fed into a demultiplexer. What is the role of demultiplexer? Demultiplexer, which separates the stream back into its component transmission, that is from one to many, and direct them to their corresponding line. So in this figure, the word which I have used, link, which refers to a physical path, and the channel carries a transmission between a given pair of lines. So one link can have many channels. So in this figure, you can see the channel has the link has three channels: channel 1, channel 2, and channel 3. So that means the given bandwidth of a link or a transmission medium, it is divided into a 3 channels, right? Then we'll see the first type of multiplexing technique, that is frequency division multiplexing technique. So FDM is an analog multiplexing technique that combines the analog signal. So already I mentioned in the beginning, it is FDM, frequency division multiplexing, is specifically used for analog signals. So it uses the concept of modulation. We have already seen what is the modulation using frequency division modulation, FM, frequency modulation. So in FM technique, the frequency of the carrier signal will be changed according to the change in the voltage level of your modulating signal, and thereby we are producing the analog modulated signal, okay, using the frequency character by changing the frequency characteristic. So let us see what is the process of frequency division multiplexing. The FDM is an analog technique that can be applied when the bandwidth of the link is greater than the combined bandwidth of the signal which is to be transmitted. Hence, in FDM, the signals generated by each sending device, they modulate the different carrier frequencies. So these modulated signals are then combined into a single composite signal that can be transported by the link. Now, the carrier frequencies are separated by sufficient bandwidth. Remember, we have in the last session we have discussed the concept of guard band. So for what purpose we use the guard band? The guard bands are used to avoid or to prevent the signals from overlapping. So because of this, if we want to ensure that the signal should not be overlapped with each other, or the channels should not overlap with each other, then each channel can be separated by strips of unused bandwidth, which are generally called as guard bands, and we use the guard bands to prevent the signals from overlapping. In addition, the carrier frequencies, they must not interfere with the original data frequencies. So we have to ensure that the carrier frequency should not interfere with the original frequency. So in this figure, you can see that these 3 different analog signal, they have been combined together into a one composite analog signal, and the one composite analog signal is then transmitted across this transmission medium. Okay, whereas we are using the guard band in between each of these carrier signals. So you can see here carrier signal F1 is separated by a guard band with respect to the carrier signal frequency 2, and same as for the carrier frequency 3. So each of these carrier signals, they are separated from each other by using the guard bands, and we are using guard bands to avoid the interference. So that is the frequency division multiplexing process, where the different analog signal or the multiple analog signal, they are combined together, which produces one composite analog signal, and that composite analog signal will be transmitted across the transmission. So let's go to the frequency band allocation. As we have already discussed this, the frequency modulation band allocation, it ranges from 88 megahertz to 108 megahertz. So that means we can have a possible or a potential 100 radio stations which ranges in this frequency band. Okay, then we talked about multiplexing. Then what is the thing at the receiver's end? So the deep multiplexer is used as a series of filters to decompose the multiplex signal into its constituent component signals. The individual signals, they are then passed to a demodulator that separates them from their carriers and passes them to the output line. Okay, so that means at the receiver's end, this composite signal is demultiplexed into three carrier signals, and these three carrier signals then passed from filters, three different filters. And why we need a filters? Because this carrier signal that we get as a part of demultiplexing, they are actually modulated. So we need to demodulate them in order to receive, or in order to discover the original signal. So to discover the original signal, we need to demodulate the carrier signal. So carrier signal has to be passed from the filter. Filter is the process which actually performs the demodulation of the given signal to produce or to discover the original signal. So this composite signal, analog signal, which is received at the destination, it is demultiplexed into three carrier signals. These three carrier signals will be passed to these three different filters. These three different filters, they perform the demodulation of the carrier signal and produces the original signal. So let's have some example. So 5 channels, each with a 100 kilohertz bandwidth, are to be multiplexed together. What is the minimum bandwidth of the link if there is a need for guard band of 10 kilohertz between the channels to prevent the interference? So we're supposed to calculate the total bandwidth of the link from where we have to supposed to pass the 5 analog signals. In this case, you can consider it. So tell me in the chat box, what would be the bandwidth required to transmit the 5 channels, each with the 100 kilohertz bandwidth? Any guess? Just think of it. So that means your transmission medium, your link, which actually used to connect your sender and receiver, should accommodate a 5 channels. That means we have to accommodate the 5 channels in the link. Now each channel's bandwidth requirement is 100 kilohertz. So that means for 5 channels, we need how much bandwidth? Type in the chat box. For 5 channels, we need how much bandwidth? Yes, right. So for 5 channels, we need 500 kilohertz bandwidth. Now we mentioned that we have to also ensure that these 5 channels, they should not interfere or they should not overlap with each other. And to make sure the overlapping does not occur, we are using guard bands. Now in the problem itself, it is mentioned that a guard band of 10 kilohertz is used between the channels to prevent the interference. So how many guard bands we need to separate the 5 channels from each other? How many guard bands we require? You can type in the chat box. 4 guard bands, exactly. So we need a 4 guard bands. Now each guard band is of size 10 kilohertz. That means 4 into 10, 40 kilohertz. So the answer is, in order to transmit these 5 channels, each with the 100 kilohertz bandwidth, each channel is separated by a guard band of 10 kilohertz, then we need the total bandwidth 540 kilohertz, right? So 5 channels bandwidth is 100 into 5, that is 500 kilohertz, and we need a 4 guard band of size 10 kilohertz, of bandwidth 10 kilohertz. So that means 4 into 10, 10 kilohertz. So 500 plus 40 kilohertz. So total bandwidth required is 540 kilohertz. So the link from which we are going to transmit this composite signal, which combines these 5 signals, each of size 100 kilohertz, should have the bandwidth of 540 kilohertz. Now this is the hierarchy of frequency division multiplexing. So in this figure, you can see that if we have 12 voice channel, if the 48 kilohertz is the frequency, then we can have such 12 voice channel, each with each of size 4 kilohertz bandwidth. Okay, so the bandwidth of each channel is 4 kilohertz. Now what in frequency division multiplexing, what we are doing, we are grouping them, this 12 voice channel with bandwidth 4 kilohertz, we are grouping them. Now we are creating 5 such groups. That means each group bandwidth size is 48 kilohertz. So that means 5 group means we need a 240 kilohertz. We are producing a composite signal with a 240 kilohertz, and this 240 kilohertz composite signal, it accommodates the 60 voice channel, because in each group there are 12 voice channel, and we have such 5 groups. So 12 into 5, 60, and each group has the bandwidth of 48 kilohertz. So that means 48 into 5. So the composite signal, the final or the resultant composite signal that we are multiplexing has the bandwidth of 240 kilohertz. Same way, then we are again multiplexing that groups into subgroups. So we are creating 10 such subgroups, each with the bandwidth of 240 kilohertz and 60 voice channel. Then the resultant composite signal will have the bandwidth of 2.52 megahertz, and it will accommodate 600 voice channel. Again, we multiplex this subgroup into a master group. So we have 6 master group, each with the bandwidth 2.52 megahertz bandwidth, which each master group accommodates the 600 voice channel. And if we multiplex these 6 master groups, then the resultant composite signal is the jumbo composite signal, which has the bandwidth of 16.98 megahertz, which accommodates 3600 voice channel. So you can multiplex the channel, you can perform the multiplexing process at a different level. Okay, and this is sometimes also called as the multi-level multiplexing, multi-level frequency division multiplexing. So it's time for one more example. Let's say that the advanced mobile phone system, it uses 2 bands, the first band of 824 to 849 megahertz, which is used for sending, and the other band, which ranges from 869 to 894 megahertz, it is used for receiving the data. Now each user has a bandwidth of 30 kilohertz in each direction. That means in sending and in receiving. That means the total bandwidth that user will be allocated to a user will be 60 kilohertz. So how many people can use their cellular phones simultaneously? So each band is 25 megahertz. So if you take this 849 minus 824, then the bandwidth that is that we obtain will be 25 megahertz. Now if we divide this 25 megahertz by 30 kilohertz, then we get the 833.33 hertz for each user. So how do we got this 833? So 25 megahertz is converted into kilohertz, then it will be 25,000 kilohertz. So 25 into 1000, that will be 25,000 kilohertz. So 25,000 kilohertz divided by 30 kilohertz, what we get is 833 hertz. So in reality, the band is divided into 832 channels. So we always prefer a round of number. Of these 832 channels, the 42 channels, they are reserved. For what purpose? They will be used for the control purpose, to control the remaining channels. So which means that if we subtract 42 channels out of 832, then the remaining 790 channels are available for the cellular phone users. That means 790 people, they can be use their cellular phones simultaneously. So now we'll move to the next technique, that is time division multiplexing. In time division multiplexing, it is a digital process that allows the several connections to share the high bandwidth of the link. Instead of sharing a portion of bandwidth as in frequency division multiplexing we have seen, the time is shared, right? The portion of the bandwidth is not shared. Instead of that, the time of the bandwidth is shared. So each connection occupies a portion of time in the link. So note that the same link is used as we have seen in the frequency division multiplexing. However, the link is shown sections by time rather than by frequency. So in this figure, the portion of the signals 1, 2, 3, and 4 occupies the link sequentially. What it means? The TDM is the digital multiplexing technique for combining several low rate channels into a high rate one. Okay. So instead of sharing the bandwidth of this link, okay, into a different channels, now we are using the time of this link. Okay. So this link is divided into a time slot, and each time slot will be shared by each of these channel, right? For example, this link is now, for a time being, just consider that this link is divided into 3 time slot. Each time slot is considered as a 1 time frame. Then each time frame will be shared by each of this channel 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see that, see here, this is one, the first time frame is coded with the white color, this 1, 2, 3, 4. The second time frame is coded with pink color, and the third one is coded with the yellow color, right? What it means, we have divided the available link, this transmission medium or this link, transmission link, into 3 bursts, 3 time bursts or 3 time frames, and each time frame will be slotted and will be allocated for each of these channels. So in the first time frame, the first slot will be used by the first channel. The second slot in the first time frame will be used by the second channel, and so on. And same is the case repeated for the second time frame and then for the third time frame. Now we can divide the time division multiplexing into a different scheme. So this is about the multiplexing, what we have seen. Now at the destination end, the demultiplexer, it demultiplex each time frame and transmit the each time slot to its corresponding destination. That means after demultiplexing the first time frame, the first time slot data is sent to the destination. So that means to this legitimate recipient. The second time slot data will be sent to the second destination, third to the third destination, and fourth to the fourth destination. So that's how each time frame will be demultiplexed by the demultiplexer at the destination. So we have time multiplexer at the sending end, and we have time demultiplexer at the receiving end, which actually multiplex and demultiplex the data. So as I mentioned, TDM is a digital multiplexing technique for combining the several low rate digital channels into a high rate one. So we can divide the time division multiplexing into 2 different schemes. One is synchronous and other is the statistical. So in the beginning, I mentioned the time division multiplexing is further classified as synchronous time division multiplexing technique and statistical time division multiplexing technique. In synchronous time division multiplexing, each input connection has an allotment in the output even if it is not sending the data. What do I mean here is, even if the source signal, even if you do not have any data, if some data is not there, still that slot in the given time frame will be left blank. Okay, that means we are unusing the portion of that time frame. For example, let's say that this is my first signal which has the three input slot, time input slot, that is A1, A2 and A3. Now let's say that we do not have any data to send in the first slot, that is A1. Still the data is not there from the source signal, the first source channel. Even after that, this part will be left blank. That I will show in the upcoming slide so that you will better understand it. So data are taken from each line in every t seconds, and each frame has 3 time slots. You can see the first frame has 3 time slot, second frame has three time slot, and so as the third frame has the 3 time slots. So each frame has a 3 time slot, and each time slot duration is always t by 3 seconds. So t is this one. Okay, the input time slot duration. Each slot in the output time slot, it occupies t by 3 time slot. Okay, the portion of the time. A unit of measurement, it can be 1 bit, 1 character, or 1 block of data. So each input unit, it becomes 1 output unit and occupies 1 output time slot. However, the duration of an output time slot is n times, which is shorter than the duration of an input time slot. So if an input time slot is t seconds, then the output time slot is t divided by n seconds, whereas n is the number of connection. In other words, a unit in the output connection has a shorter duration, so it travels faster. In synchronous time division multiplexing, the data rate of the link is n times faster and the unit of duration is n times shorter. And that's the reason the time division multiplexing technique is widely used for the transmission of digital signal or transmission of digital data over a communication. The rate of transmission that is always greater or always better than the rate of transmission in frequency division multiplexing. Of course, there are some pros and cons of each of these multiplexing techniques. So let's go to the next slide. In synchronous TDM, the data rate of the link is n times faster and the unit duration is n times shorter. So let us try to understand this time division multiplexing with this example. So here in this figure, the data rate of each one of the 3 input connection is given as 1 kilobits per second. That means each line has the bit rate of 1 kilobits per second. If 1 bit at a time is multiplexed, a unit is 1 bit we have considered. So we supposed to calculate what is the duration of each input slot, each output slot, and each frame. Okay. Now we can answer this question. So the data rate of each input connection is 1 kilobits per second. That means the bit duration is 1 divided by 1000 seconds. What it means? 1 second में हम कितने bits transmit कर रहे हैं? The bandwidth of the line is 1 kbps. That means 1 second में 1 kilobits data we can send per second. So if you want to convert it to bits per second, then 1 bit, 1 kilobit is equivalent to 1000 bits. Okay, that means we are sending 1000 bits in 1 second. Then if we are sending 1000 bits in 1 second, then what is the time required to send the 1 bit? That means 1 divided by 1000 will give me the time which we require to transmit the 1 bit out of 1000 bits. So 1 divided by 1000 seconds will get the answer 1. So that means we require 1 millisecond to transmit 1 bit out of 1000 bits. And remember, 1000 bits we can send. This is the capacity to transmit in 1 second. So we can transmit 1000 bits in 1 second. So each channel's capacity is 1 kbps or 1000 bits per second. So the duration of the input time slot is 1 millisecond. Okay. Then we'll go to the output slot duration and the frame rate. The duration of each output time slot is 1/3 of the input time slot. We know the input time slot. Input time slot is 1 millisecond. So the output time slot is 1/3 of that, because one time frame it accommodates 3 bits, right? That means we need a 1/3 milliseconds time. So 1/3 milliseconds means 0.33 seconds we require to for the output time slot to transmit the one output time slot, that is the one time frame. So one time frame it can be transmitted into 0.3 milliseconds. That is, it is 1/3 of input time slot. So we got the output time slot duration. That means one time frame, it can be sent at a rate of 0.3 millisecond, 0.33 milliseconds. Not at the rate, at the time. Then we'll carry the frame rate. Now, one frame, it contains or it holds or it carries 3 output time slot, one for each channel. You can see here the first time frame, it has the 3 output time slot, A1 for the first channel, B1 for the second channel, and C1 for the third channel. Same as the second time frame, it consists of A2, B2, and C2, and so as the third time frame, that is frame number 3, which contains A3, B3, and C3. So the duration of frame is 3. The number of frame, each frame carries the 3 output time slots. So 3 into the output time slot. We know that what is the output time slot? Output time slot is 1 divided by 3 milliseconds or 0.33 milliseconds. So if you take the product of 3 into 0.33 or 1 divided by 3, you get the answer 1 milliseconds. And that's the reason, if you observe carefully, the duration of frame is same as the duration of an input unit. So the duration of the input time slot is same as the duration of output time slot. Okay, sorry, the duration of frame, not the output. Yes, that is what we consider output slot. So I hope you understand. Any difficulty in understanding this? Then we'll go to the interleaving. I'll go a bit fast. The time division multiplexing can be visualized as 2 fast rotating switches, one on the multiplexing side and other on the demultiplexing side. Now these switches are synchronized and rotate at the same speed, but in the opposite direction. So on the multiplexing side, as the switch opens in a front of connection, that connection has the opportunity to send a unit onto the path, and this process is called as interleaving. So I'll just go fast. 4 channels are multiplexed using TDM. If each channel sends 100 bytes and we multiplex 1 byte per channel, show the frame traveling on the link, the size of the frame, and the duration of the frame rate and the bit rate for the link. So the answer of this question is given in this figure. The multiplexer is shown in this figure. each frame carries 1 byte from each channel. That means the size of each frame therefore is 4 bytes or the 32 bits. Because each channel is sending 100 bytes, that means 4 channel will send 400 bytes, and a frame carries 1 byte from each channel. The frame rate must be 100 frames per second, right? So each frame, because we are each channel is sending 100 bytes, we have total 400 bytes data to send. Okay, then each frame carries 1 byte, right? So each frame carries 1 byte from each channel. That means the total bytes that one frame carries is 4 bytes. So 400 bytes divided by 4 bytes will give us the answer 100 bytes, right? So the frame rate must be 100 frames per second. So we are sending 100 time frames per second if each channel has the bandwidth 100 bytes. Okay. Then the bit rate we supposed to calculate. The bit rate is, because we are transmitting 100 frames in 1 second, and each frame it consists of 4 bytes, that means 32 bits. So 100 into 32 will be 3200 bits per second. So the bit rate will be 3200 bits per second. And the frame duration will be 1 divided by 100, because we are transmitting 100 frames, 100 time frames in 1 second. So 1 divided by 100 will give me the frame duration or output slot duration. And same will be the duration for the input time slot. That is for this 4 channels. So data rate management is not, all the input links may not have the same data rate. So some links may be slower, because we have discussed, this is very ideal example that each channel has the same data rate. That is not the case in real time. So some links may be slower. There may be several different input link speed, and because of this, the data rate management, it becomes complex. So there are 3 strategies that can be used to overcome the data rate mismatch: multi-level, multi-slot, and pulse stuffing. So we'll see this one by one. First, we'll see the multi-level technique. So multi-level multiplexing is a technique which is used when the data rate of an input line is multiple of others. For example, in this figure, we have 2 inputs of 20 kilobits per second and 3 inputs of 40 kilobits per second. So the first 2 input lines can be multiplexed together to provide a data rate equal to the last 3. And the second level of multiplexing can create an output of 160 kilobits per second. So this is multi-level multiplexing. Then we'll see the multiple slot multiplexing. In multiple slot multiplexing, sometimes it is more efficient to allot more than 1 slot in a frame to a single input line. For example, we might have an input line that has a data rate that is multiple of another input. So in this figure, the input line with the 50 kilobits per second data rate can be given 2 slots in the output. So we insert a serial to parallel converter in the line to make the 2 inputs out of 1. So that's how we can achieve the multiple slot or multiple level frequency allocation, time allocation. Then comes the third one, that is pulse stuffing. We'll see what is pulse stuffing. Sometimes the bit rates of the sources are not multiple integers of each other. So therefore, neither of the above 2 techniques that we have discussed can be applied in this situation or in such circumstances. So the solution is to make the highest input data rate the dominant data rate, and then add the dummy bits to the input line with the lower rates. Now this will increase their rates, and because of this, this process is called as pulse stuffing. Sometimes it is also called as bit padding or bit stuffing. The input with the data rate of 46 is pulse stuff to increase the rate of 50 kilobits per second. Now multiplexing can be take place. Now we can multiplex the data. Okay. So I hope you can understood this. Then the last one is the framing bits. It is sometimes also referred as the framing synchronization. So synchronization between the multiplexer and the demultiplexer is the major problem or the major issue. If the multiplexer and the demultiplexer, if they are not synchronized, then a bit belonging to one channel may be received by the wrong channel. Okay, and that's the reason synchronization is very important. So what is synchronization? The clock of sender should be synchronized with the clock of receiver. Now for this reason, one or more synchronization bits are usually added to the beginning of each frame, so as to ensure the synchronization between sender and receiver. Now these bits are called as framing bits, which follows the pattern frame to frame that allows your demultiplexer to synchronize with the incoming stream so that it can separate the time slot accurately. In most cases, this synchronization information consists of 1 bit per frame, alternating between 0 and 1. So in this figure, you can see the framing bits are added, or they have been composed in each frame. So the synchronization bit 1 is added in this frame. The synchronized bits 0 is added in the next frame, and synchronized bit 1 is added in the third frame. And same pattern will be followed for the next frame. So for frame 4, again bit 1 will be added into frame. For frame 5, 0 bit will be added, and for frame 6, the bit 1 will be added. So synchronization pattern 101 is followed in all the subsequent frames of each group, in each 3 frames group. Okay. So this synchronization pattern will be repeated for the subsequent 3 frames. Okay, so now we'll see the inefficient use of bandwidth, and we'll stop. I know we are running out of time. We are 1 minute late. So give me next 2 minutes, then I will stop. So sometimes an input link may have no data to transmit. When that happens, one or more slot of the output link will go unused. Now this is the wastage of your bandwidth, and that's the reason the next TDM technique comes into the picture. So this is sometimes referred as the empty slots. So in this figure, you can see that the second channel does not have any data to send in the second slot. And because of this, in every time frame, after multiplexing, when you transmit this data through a link, communication link, then in every time frame, the second slot will be unused. Okay, in the first time frame, the second slot is unused. In the second time frame, both the slots are unused, second and third. And in the third time frame, again, the second slot is unused. So you can see that there is wastage of bandwidth. We are not sending any data. So statistical time division multiplexing technique is used to avoid this. Okay, I will take 1 minute to finish this statistical time division multiplexing technique. So we have seen in synchronous time division multiplexing, each input has reserved slot in the output frame. Now this can be inefficient. If some input lines have no data to send, then the bandwidth will be wastage. So in statistical time division multiplexing, the slots are dynamically allocated to improve the bandwidth efficiency. Only when an input line has a slot worth of data to send in a given slot, in a given time frame, the time slot will be allocated for that output frame. So in statistical multiplexing, the number of slots in each frame is less than the number of input lines. The multiplexer checks each input line in a round robin fashion. So what is round robin fashion? It allocates a slot for an input line if the line has some data to transmit. Otherwise, it skips that line and checks the next line. So there are three different concepts in statistical time division multiplexing: size of the slot, non-synchronization bits, and bandwidth. So I'll take 1 minute more and then I will finish. I know we are running late. So in slot size, since a slot carries both data and the address in statistical time division multiplexing, the ratio of the data size to address size, it must be reasonable to make the transmission efficient. For example, it would be efficient to send 1 bit per slot as data when the address is 3 bits. So in statistical TDM, the block of data is usually many bytes while the address is just a few bytes. Then comes to the synchronization. In statistical TDM technique, no synchronization bit is used. The frames in the statistical TDM need not be synchronized. So we do not need any synchronization bit. As we have seen in synchronous TDM, we require a synchronization bit that is called as a framing bit, framing synchronization. Then comes to the bandwidth of statistical TDM. Then the capacity of link is normally less than the sum of the capacity of each channel. Remember, in statistical TDM, the bandwidth of the link is normally it is less than the sum of the bandwidth of each channel. Hence, the designer of the statistical TDM, they define the capacity of link based on the statistics of the load for each channel. If on average only X% of input slots are filled, then the capacity of the link, it reflects this. Of course, during the peak times, some slot needs to be on waiting time. So some slot, they will be put on waiting time. So that's it from statistical and synchronous TDM time division multiplexing technique. So we left with one more technique that is called as code division multiplexing technique. So I will prepare interactive video based on the code division multiplexing technique. Probably tomorrow I will deploy that video. So on Monday, we talk about the next topic, that is the noise in the signal. Okay, what are the different types of noise and 2 different algorithms for removing the noise. Okay, so thank you very much. So these are the references for this presentation. If you have any doubt or query, you can contact me at any time, or you can mail me your queries, or you can WhatsApp your queries on this mobile number. So thank you for patiently listening. You can ask your questions, otherwise we will stop. Any question? Okay, I will share the PPT, don't worry. So I need the feedback from all the students. Please type your what do you feel about this today's presentation? Do you really understood it or not?